Hello, Edwina Murphy-Droomer is my name, and I want to warmly welcome you to this interview in the series where I am speaking to phenomenal feminine entrepreneurs in order to gain their life-changing insights on taking control of your prosperity, your freedom, and your beautiful future. Today, I am so excited to have back with me, because it's not our first interview, Kirsty Wirth. Kirsty, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I can't get enough of our conversations because I'm always so inspired by what you've done. So, for those in our audience that haven't had the pleasure of meeting you or coming across your work until now, I'd love you to give a bit of a picture of. I know that there are so many pieces to the puzzle that is Kirsty, lots of things that you've done that brought you to do the work in fermented and gut health that you do now. But if you could take us on a bit of a journey, it would be amazing.
Goodness me. Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like the journey started when I myself was so young because I have had a lot of health issues my whole life and it has in some ways it's been a blessing because it's built resilience that you don't get until you come up against big adversity.
Yeah.
And so it's been wonderful in some ways, but yeah, it has been multiple factors that have brought me to where I am today and being the founder of Cultured Wellness and being so blessed and so lucky to be able to help other people. I feel like it's such a wonderful blessing for me now to be able to do that. But yeah, I certainly had gone through all of these experiences, and we might get to them in a minute about my previous jobs or my previous travels or my previous studies that I was in or mountains that I've climbed, or I've been in crazy situations, when I was traveling that supported me and helped me to learn about problem solving and troubleshooting
Yeah.
and having that, real adversity to risk, which you need to have as an entrepreneur, and how to like build your team around you quickly and bring everyone together and pivot and change and all of those sorts of things. So
Yeah.
I'd really been working on that without even knowing it for so
Mhm.
long.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, it wasn't until within my family, we're faced with real adversity with my son being so sick.
Yeah.
And as a parent, and you would know this too, you put up with stuff for yourself all the time,
Mhm.
and you kind of put it, under the carpet, and I'm fine and I'll get on with it and I can get up and I can face the day. But as soon as your kids start going under, then you become this like lioness and you just pull on all your resources and you give it all you have. And that's really what I had to do for my son. He was extremely unwell and given a really horrible prognosis of not being able to speak for the rest of his life, so completely non-verbal and really just non-functional, certainly not going to school and reaching his milestones. And he's going to have to either live with us or live in a home. And we were faced with this, my husband and I were faced with this sort of staring down the barrel of, like, how did this happen? We were happy-go-lucky, crazy travelers and, had the world at our feet. Let's get pregnant. And then suddenly, like, just completely, hit the rock bottom with, like, we have a significantly ill son and, like, are we carers now? How does this work? So I did draw on my previous skills of research, and because something wasn't right, like that prognosis, just something wasn't right. And I just thought, we need to investigate this. We need to find out more. And I am so glad that when we reached that crossroad, that we did. Just we were just curious,
Yeah.
and we questioned and we wanted more for ourselves and our family. And that kind of led to this big snowball effect of us being able to find resources and doctors and specialists. And we were part of a research study that focused on, my son we did some testing and he had significant gut infections that were causing that brain inflammation and those issues. And so we were able to, organize a transplant for him for his gut. And we were able to get him back on track again. And we were able to move forward with his health to the point that, you know, today he's verbal and he's off to school and he's going through puberty and he's driving me crazy and like he's just got all of the usual stuff going on.
Yeah.
And yes, like he didn't speak until he was 5, you know, like he's got significant delays and he's got his own stuff going on. But yeah, it's just such a phenomenal story of, had we not questioned and been curious and followed through and just, you know, pondered on things and relied on our own curiosity and our own intuition, had we not done that, like we would still have a non-verbal, non-functional child. And my life is really full anyway. I can't imagine what it would be like, because, you know, I had my daughter at, you know, she was a baby at this stage, and you know, she had her own little path to move forward, and her life would be significantly different as well. So from, you know, seeing this stark difference between a child with a gut dysbiosis, gut infection, and such significant gut health issues, and what it can do to your brain, to your body, to everything that we have inside of us, of how we are, to see what it can do and how harmful, and then see how amazing it is when you have a robust, thriving gut that, you know, is your ally, that is your support. To see that, and of course I had to learn so much, and I had to do extra study, and I had to, you know, I didn't have to, I had an awesome opportunity to speak to the world's best, you know, in this area. And so it just kind of naturally progressed that I started reaching out to people like, did you know that it's not just, this is not your end road, that there's hope and there's opportunities and there's more that you can investigate and learn. And yeah, one thing led to another, and it's like, oh, I think I've started a business. Oh no, now it's a company. Oh no, now we have more than 15 employees, and I think we're international now, and you know, like all of, and I think I need a general manager. I can't manage this, you know, like all of the, you know, and you kind of, oh my gosh, here we are.
Yeah.
And it really is about, when your core value in a business is to serve, it just all happens. So yeah, gosh, what an adventure it's been.
I think my light's doing weird things. I hope it's not distracting people, but I think you went through a university degree in your own right, really.
Yes.
You might not have been sitting in a formal university, but you did the equivalent of, by the sound of things, to pull together the knowledge and the information and the skill set that you've now got.
Yeah. It you know, and it's amazing. Even so, when Noah got sick, I was finishing off my PhD at Monash University, and so I was trying to reach out to specialists. Now this was before even PubMed was public, and so I couldn't actually access a lot of the research papers, and you know, this was just well before, I think it was before Instagram and all this kind of stuff. And so I remember ringing the specialist in Canada and saying, you know, hello, I'm Kirsty Wirth and I'm from Monash University. I didn't say which department I was from. Like, I just said I was from Monash, and for some information, and I need some support and help. And and you know, it is fascinating when I think about the skill set and the qualities that are needed. And we were talking, you know, just before we jumped onto the interview, like I had my research skill set, and which I applied. I mean, I had these enormous big papers up on the wall of, you know, doing mud maps and piecing all the different bits together, and then my ability to communicate. So my first career, I was an HR manager, and so my, you know, ability to ring people and communicate and build rapport and have that open questioning and dialogue and building respect and confidence and commitment and all of that communication that's so important. I had studied that at uni, and then also had practiced that, and then, you know, I have a teaching degree and background, and so, you know, being able to then teach others, you know, I could draw on that. And you know, and I've been through major adversities and sort of really big trauma in my life, and so I was in the Boxing Day tsunami, and I, sort of had to do about 3 years of post-traumatic stress counselling and gaining tools to support my mental health around being through such a significant trauma. And so Noah, and what happened with him, I often say, like, I'm so glad that I was actually in the tsunami and went through that, because by the time what came along with Noah, I'd actually built some pretty amazing resilience tools and tools to help me through another significant trauma in my life. And, I didn't handle it well. Like, I'm certainly not the pin-up poster of how to handle it well, but I had a training ground before that with the tsunami and what had happened afterwards, and how I had to just build this new resilience that you think you'll never be able to come back from, and from that trauma.
Where was the tsunami? What was that? Where was it?
Yeah, I was in Thailand, but it was the big Boxing Day one that was, all over Asia, and,
Wow.
I don't know, 500,000 people were killed, or whatever it was. Yeah. So I was stuck on an island, and we weren't rescued for 2 days, and I had no food, and people just died all around me, and I had to resuscitate people and keep people alive. And it's another whole story in itself. But once again, when you sit in those dark moments of, how can I face this? You draw on all of this other stuff. And also, previous travels, and I'm a big fan of outdoor sports, and have done a lot of, rock climbing and mountaineering and stuff. And so in those situations, you only have one goal. You've got to get to the top. And so you've got to have a bit of adversity to risk to be able to get there. You've got to have quite linear thought to get there. Does this apply to where I'm going? Is this exactly what I need to think about right now? Because I've got to stay focused. And, many of the big mountains in cultured wellness, or what I've faced, I've applied a bit like, well, if I'm going on an expedition, I'm going to climb a mountain.
Yeah.
This is how I would pull it together. This is the team. This is how I'd stay focused. This is how I would plan it. And I drew on those things as well. So it was. And then now, like, every day I'm facing something new, running a business, and I'm either learning for the first time and, like, holy smokes, how am I going to upskill? How am I going to upgrade? I do not have the skill set to face this problem. Or I can draw on past experiences and go, I don't have to upskill so much today on that one. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. So so many things, and I think it's really important that we celebrate what we've learned in the past, and not not just like, I hear it a lot, like, that was my old life, or that was back when. I was like, oh no, like, that's the cool stuff. That's draw in and really uses your scaffolding or your leap to move forward.
I have a I think love might be a strong. I wanted to say love-hate relationship with mainstream schooling and the journey that my kids have got. There's a lot about it that causes me huge frustration. But what I say to my kids is, you're there to learn to learn. It's not the content so much, because let's face it, everything they're learning pretty much is in Google.
Yes.
But it's learning to learn, isn't it? It's that, as entrepreneurs, we have to be absolutely resourceful. That's, part of being an entrepreneur. There's not, there's so many things that we do that there isn't actually anybody to hand you a rule book. You're kind of making a lot of things up and finding information from different places.
Yeah.
But it is that, the learning how to learn on this journey, on this, life university, that actually serves us really well.
Yeah. And you've got to flex that decision-making muscle. So I see a lot of people quite hamstrung or frozen in decision-making, either fatigue or just decision-making, like, fear. And it's really nice to know that every single time you make a decision, you're flexing your decision-making muscle to know, well, I actually made an awesome decision there and it worked out. I can make good decisions here. Or if you make a decision and it doesn't work out, what a great opportunity to learn. But if you make no decisions and you're sort of stuck in this no man's land,
Yeah.
you can't learn, you don't build strength from that decision making, and you don't go anywhere. And so, and you know, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. You get to adjust, you get to move forward. But I just can't stress enough how important it is to make a decision.
Yeah.
You know, all the time, every day, and back yourself on that. And you know, that's the wonderful thing about women in business. We're not arrogant about our decisions. We just go there, we back ourselves.
Yeah.
And quite self-effacing, like, well, that one didn't turn out. You know. And then, oh, but thank goodness it didn't, because now I've met so-and-so who has actually taught me that this was the path forward, and off I go. So and I love making decisions, and I love, you know, once again, like when I go out bushwalking or rock climbing, one of the biggest things that I love about it is you have to solve problems all the time. So you're either lost, or the weather's come in, or something's happened, or a piece of equipment's fallen apart or whatever. And you constantly having to problem solve and make a decision. And there's no one there to tell you whether it's the right or wrong decision. You're either stuck out there for the rest of your life and you're lost forever, or you make a decision and back yourself and go for it.
Yeah.
I think, there's a lot of people that are just waiting for someone else to tell them that that was right, and you know, you did well. Yeah. And no one's going to come along and do that for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I recorded a wonderful interview with Ana Paula Munoz and just today, and we were talking about, you know, it's in our DNA. For so long, women have needed permission to do anything and everything, and I think we're still shedding that. To a large degree, I think we're still shedding that. And I think, you know, I spent a lot of my life looking for permission or for other people to validate my ideas rather than just grabbing hold of them and running with them myself. That didn't come until I was in my 40s. But I think it's an important conversation to just bring awareness around.
Yeah. And I think also immersing yourself, and I understand the complexities of my comment right now, but immersing yourself in other cultures. So we can't possibly travel to those cultures right now, but I have spent quite a lot of time either with Norwegian women or in Norway, and I, you know, my ancestors sort of go back to that sort of Norwegian background, and you know, I'm so blessed to have spent so much time with that culture and with those women, because their tradition is women actually went into battle. Many of the women were heads of the, you know, whether it be in a battle, they were in charge of it. They were exactly equals with the men in decisions. You know, everything that was done as a society. And so I have been so fortunate that, you know, I've spent so much time over there or with other Norwegian women. So for my 40th, I chose not to have a party, and I went to Norway for 3 weeks. And all of my Australian friends were like, oh my God, like, what does your husband say? You can't just leave your family for 3 weeks and just like take off. And there was so much like guilt and, you know, is everyone okay with this? And there was like this sort of Australian lens of looking through this decision. And then I get to Norway and the women are like, damn straight you should be here. Like, and yes, your husband should be absolutely backing you up. And it's your, and I like, it was just this polar opposite. And so I was celebrated for my decision of how I wanted to spend my 40th and who I wanted to spend it with and how I wanted to nurture myself. And, you know, in Australia, it was just like this completely opposite. And so I've been very fortunate, and I highly recommend, you know, reaching out to other cultures and other people to learn, so we're not boxed into how we think and how we perceive and how we look at our roles in our lives.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I've been very fortunate to travel a lot as well. And my eldest son turned 21 during COVID, and I actually gave him tickets to South Africa. He hasn't been able to use them. not able to use. I'm actually not sure when that's going to happen, but yeah, I think it's hugely important. But even, I mean, within our own countries, obviously you and I are in Australia, but in America, in all of, in these countries, in Australia, we've got a very diverse way of doing things. The Victorians are very different to the Western Australians and the Queenslanders, and we are quite different. But we also have our amazing Aboriginal cultures here, and there's ways to interact there. So we get to be resourceful.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
know how multicultural Australia is. So yeah, Noah's just had a trainer start working with him, and he's Norwegian. And
Yeah.
he said, "Did I?" And my husband said, "Did he get the job because he's Norwegian?" And I was like, possibly.
Maybe.
Can't travel. We got to bring them to us.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, absolutely. I can't skip over. You touched on the paralysis and not being able to make a decision. And I asked in our book, for people's ideas on what they do to overcome procrastination when you're feeling stuck. And your answer was just so perfect. I'd love you to share it.
Classic. Well, I loved it. It was so funny because, we were sending through those questions and it was, what do you do?
Yeah.
You procrastinate. And I was like, well, it's obvious. You do a handstand. Like, I genuinely didn't realize it was such an odd answer. And you sent it back going, wow, what an answer. I was like, oh, maybe that's not a very typical answer. It's like classic me. Like, that's just what you do.
Yeah.
But it's such a funny way that my brain works, like the joy and the fun of it.
Yeah.
So I'll always bring my kids in and we'll always, do our handstands, but then the functional side of it, the oxygenation to the brain but also, that sort of pattern interrupt of your brain seeing everything from a different perspective. So literally upside down. And so I am quite regularly upside down during my work day so I can kind of keep up and keep going with it. But
I think it's fabulous. I think we should all have these little cameras that go behind the scenes, because I'm sure there's all sorts of fabulous things, like, it's another book, fabulous, like, quirky ideas that we could capture. I've got this, I do this running on the spot, like I stand with my legs kind of in a scissor and I run for like a minute this side and then a minute on the other side to just kind of get myself.
yeah.
And I often think if I turned the camera on right now, people would just be like, what is she doing?
I know. We have big strategy days, with the team at Culture Wellness. And when we book the rooms for the strategy days, we literally ask, does it have a wall where we can do our handstands? Because not everyone, including me, can just do a free handstand. I need a wall to have my legs to go up to. So it's actually a classic, like, yep, so we're coming. I'm just wondering if you have a wall that doesn't have a picture. And often you don't want to tell them what you're up to. It's just, what's going on there?
I've got to share a story just because it just popped into my head, and it was years ago in high school, and people were doing handstands against the wall, and there was a boy in the room that I thought was quite gorgeous. And I remember doing a handstand and my arms gave out under me.
Oh my God. And on your chin?
No, so like just my hands gave out, so my head kind of hit the floor. Oh, so it's just come back.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I don't do many handstands.
Yeah, it could be.
Oh my goodness. Anyway,
some form of pants or something, just in case I need to get upside down.
This conversation's taking off in all sorts of different directions that I didn't expect. But I think it's really, I often talk about the pieces of the puzzle. We can get very fixated on one thing. For those of us in the entrepreneurial world, we're just all in on business, and sometimes we neglect relationships or our health and all these other pieces of the puzzle that need to all come together. And with my background in naturopathy and functional nutrition, food is a very passionate conversation and a huge part of what I credit my ability to, and my energy to do what I do.
Yeah.
So I think it would be remiss of me not to share some of your brilliance while I have you here with this audience, to just talk about, if we can, the incredible importance of gut health, because I think in your bubble everybody knows about it, but there's a big wide world out here that are not familiar with the conversation around gut health and why it's so critically important.
Yeah.
So let's touch on that.
I think so. And interestingly, I just did a talk at the the National Education Summit.
Ah,
And I was talking to a bunch of teachers and principals about, did you know, like, your children in your school, your students, their gut is either their superhero or their arch nemesis. And it's such a great way to see it.
yeah.
So your gut literally can turn you into a superhero that can pretty much do anything and make you feel like you're invincible.
Mm-hmm.
Or it can turn you into someone you just don't want to be. Like, we watch the cartoons, or we watch the movies with the baddie in there, and they're always grumpy and they're wanting to destroy the world, and this kind of thing. And no one wants to be like that person. But if your gut is out of balance, you absolutely become that person. So the research and our understanding of this space of gut health has advanced so much in the last 5 years. Like, I can barely keep up with it now. So 10 years ago, I'd be sitting around waiting for the next research paper, whereas now, that they come in left, right, and center, and I have someone to kind of pre-read things for me and keep me updated, because I can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
And what we know now, which is so integral to who we are, and especially as entrepreneurs, is to have enough energy and to have enough motivation and to have enough resilience and to be able to make those decisions and to sleep well and to be balanced. Most of that comes from your gut, if not all of it. So, for example, I get asked all the time, how do you keep up with your life? Because I do a really, I try my hardest to, yes, I've got my work and cultured wellness, but I do have my sports and I do have my kids, and then I do my sports with my kids, and, and all of the other things that I do. And it is literally, if I did not have my allies in my gut, I literally couldn't make any energy.
Yeah.
So when we eat, we've got these beautiful bacteria in our gut that are butyrate producing bacteria. And butyrate turns into energy in our mitochondria. So in our cells, year 10 biology, we have, these little ATP in our cells in the mitochondria, and they produce energy. They give us that, not the coffee energy, not the green tea energy, not the chocolates at 3 o'clock. They actually give us energy. So if you don't have that bacteria in your gut that is producing the butyrate, you are flatlined, and it doesn't matter how much coffee or chocolate or energy drinks, whatever, mothers or whatever the hell's out there now. It doesn't matter how much of that you consume. The factory's broken, and you will eventually just completely flatline out. So energy, and you need so much energy when you're running a business and you want to have that balance in your business. If you have to have energy, and it must come from your gut.
Yep.
And when we talk about motivation, we want oodles of dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that, we're sitting on the couch and they're like, oh, I really want to go and do that. And I've got the motivation, I've got the get-go, I'm going to get up off this couch. I'm going to go and do what I've been ruminating around for about 15 years. Now I'm going to get up off the couch and do it. And that dopamine, that neurotransmitter that we need to get going, that all starts in our gut. They're the metabolites that come from our gut. So if you're sitting on the couch without that motivation, then you're not going to be able to do anything. And if you're there on the couch without your butyrate, you're not going to do anything. Once again, it's all coming from your gut. We also know that you have to have really, really awesome, optimal nutrition to keep up with the lifestyle of an entrepreneur. Like, you cannot run around with iron deficiency and rock being an entrepreneur. You just can't. Like, it's not possible. You've got brain fog, you're confused, you're lacking energy, you can't keep up with anything, you've got like the shortness of breath, all these things that we see with iron deficiency. But we know that we extrapolate and use all of that iron from the synthesis of it from our digestion, of what's going on in our gut. And that's just, iron's just one nutrient. I mean, all of our B vitamins, and look, the list goes on. Zinc, so important, like all these things. But if our gut isn't functioning and we're not digesting our food, we're not going to be optimally nourished to then be able to keep up with, you know, like today, you know, I have, I don't know, 6 consults, an interview with you, another podcast. I'm doing a 2-hour live tonight for an education series, and then off to training with my son in the morning and so forth. So you've got to keep up with it. You've got to, and, you know, be on task. The other thing is, if your gut's not working as your ally, it starts to be the naughty toddler that wants to cause trouble. And so you start to get an overgrowth of, you know, pathogenic bacteria, overgrowth of yeast, parasites, infections. And when you get an overgrowth of those things, they require a fuel source for them to keep growing. And that fuel source is the red wine when you can't be stuffed, and it's the Sunday afternoon, you know, binge on ice cream. It's the Wednesday night, I've just had enough, everything's too hard, I'm going to, you know, get takeaway, I'm going to eat pizza. And these pathogens in your gut are driving and dictating your food choices. And so then you're eating crap, not getting the nutrients, feeding those pathogens even more, and you just start in this horrible cycle. And so that's a very small snapshot of, you know, what can be amazing when your gut's working. And you can, and we know that after a long weekend with the girls, after 3 or 4 days, your gut can shift significantly. And then suddenly the weekend wine turns into the every single night, and the dessert, or, you know, every single day, or that Loving Earth salted caramel chocolate that I can't seem to, you know, like all those little things. And suddenly it's not, you know, it's a daily thing, and then it's a twice daily thing. And then you wake up one day and you're like, I used to just have, you know, bone broth and fermented foods. What happened here? So if you want to really, I'm sorry, I see my cameras going in and out with the focus.
I think it's okay.
Okay, cool. But yeah, if you really want to just achieve your dreams as an entrepreneur, consistency is king, in my opinion, of how I've got to where I am. It's consistency. Can't smash yourself and do a big launch and then, you know, hit rock bottom, get out and smash yourself again and hit rock bottom. It's all about consistency, and that comes from eating well and looking after your gut and doing those things consistently.
I think, you know, one of the things I've noticed, and it just comes to mind because my beautiful daughter turned 18 on the weekend, and she had friends here and they wanted to have pizza on Friday night, you know, which is unusual in this house, but it's like, oh, you know, that's fine. So we ordered pizza. And I just have no craving for it. You know, like I know that when I'm really healthy and my gut's good, I don't crave it. I've got no interest. When I'm not doing so well, it's like I can't leave it alone. That's, you know, that's a teller.
And that's the thing that I talk about a lot, actually, because we think that we need willpower to change our diet, or willpower to look after our gut health and so forth. Willpower gets you nowhere when it comes to cravings and when it comes to changing the, you know, the way you see food and how you want food. It is all about the bacteria in your gut. They're the ones that give you either the willpower to not want the pizza, or they're the ones that you feel like you fail every day. It's like, I don't want to eat that, but here I am. Woke up and I was eating Tim Tams. How did this happen? You know? So it's like, you can't, anytime someone says to me, oh, I just don't have the willpower to do what you do, it's like, I've got the worst willpower. I'm crap at it. But I've got great gut bugs that help me with that. They're my little allies.
Yeah. It's actually, that segues beautifully into one of the other questions in my book, which is, how community or tribe have affected your ability to grow as an entrepreneur. But I think we can bring that into any area of our life, and certainly in making changes in our health. So maybe let's just touch on that. I know we're running close to time, but just with this, because I think it's really important to understand the critical importance of having a tribe or a community or a coach or somebody that you're working with when you're going through periods of change, or actually all the time. But what's your experience been with that?
Yeah. I just think it's so, so important to have a space where you don't feel like you have to explain yourself. And it's just so lovely. Like when we think about how important it is for our nervous system to sit in that state of rest and digest, and how important it is to turn off that amygdala that is constantly on this fight or flight and get into that executive function of making great decisions. If you're constantly with people that are questioning you, and you're constantly around people that, why do you do that? Or I don't get you, or really just have the, whatever it is, oh, you're so this, or I could never do what you do. And it's this constant opposition to you. When you're always around that, your body is in alarm and you don't feel safe. And when you don't feel safe, you can't heal, you can't make great decisions, you can't be the best person that you want to be, because you're not operating out of that executive function. So you are operating from this sort of scared person that just wants to keep people happy and just make everything okay. And you're not your true self. You can't be your true self because you're in this state of alarm. And so when you're around people that, when you say to them, oh, I'm going to go home early tonight because I want to do a coffee enema. and they're like, yeah, high five. I wanted to say that, but I didn't do it. Or someone, just any decision. I'm like, man, all I want to do is just have a big bowl of yogurt. Or, you know what? I don't want to go out for dinner, but can we go for a walk in the morning and BYO our own little cup of coffee? I just can't handle cafes at the moment because I get a bit tempted. Or can we just hang out outside instead of the classic go to for dinner, or just, someone that gets who you want to be. Also gets your dreams and your goals and helping you to move forward. Suddenly you feel secure and you feel safe and you feel heard. And then you're like, oh, like, yes, this is me. And it's just a completely different thing, as opposed to constantly turning up to social situations and fighting against their status quo. So it's not the status quo, it's just theirs and what they want to do. And that's cool. So I still attend many, events and friends and family, and go to all sorts of things where, if they knew the stuff that I got up to at home, and was like, that bag, like, what's going on there? But I don't talk about it, don't feel the need to talk about it. I engage in, politics, or talk about books or music or anything apart from what I do. And I love who they are for that. But, I'm not going to suddenly start talking about something that's just so foreign. It will end up getting me feeling really overwhelmed or confronted or whatever. So reaching your people and hanging out with your people is really, really important. Very, very important to bring that fear down and get you into safety mode. And switch off those alarm bells all the time.
It makes me think of one of my favorite books, or one of my favorite women, Brene Brown, and her book Braving the Wilderness, because reading that book, I don't know if you've read it, reading that book was like, it's like this sense of relief. I've always been an outlier. Like I've always
Yeah,
been the one that's slightly different in the
yeah,
crowd and
yeah.
always wanted to fit in and belong until recently. And now it's like, actually, I know my tribe's actually an outlier.
Yeah. Like I had a client the other day and she rang me in such a panic. And because she was like, well, all of my girlfriends are going away and they're, getting on a plane and they're flying to Noosa from South Australia for one of the girlfriends' 50th birthdays. It's going to be an absolute bonanza of like champagne, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and this and then that, and going to the day spa that's full of chemicals. And,
Yeah.
and she was in a complete spin about it. And the thing was that she didn't actually want to leave her son, who is having significant health issues, and she didn't want to leave him at home. And if the borders closed, I couldn't get back to him. And she felt so frozen in fear about telling them, I can't go, that she completely lost her ability to find language around it, how to communicate with her dear friends that she's known for since they were in high school. And she literally rang me in a panic and I said, it's okay, like you just need to talk to them and explain using these words. You don't need to justify yourself. It's your decision, but you just need to say, this is what's happening with me at the moment and I just can't do it. And they're going to be fine with it. You don't need to conform or go because you don't want to, or so forth. And it was having that sounding board to bounce off of, which is so important when we talk about coaches and having other people to mentor you. And literally giving her language and giving her the confidence and the skills to go back to her dearest friends, who she just spent so much time to say, I just can't. I just can't do it. I can't keep conforming to all of this when I've got so much going on at home and I've got big things happening, and I just can't. I can't say yes all the time to these things. So it's fascinating, what we feel like we're supposed to do.
Yes. Well, it goes back to that whole pizza conversation. Once upon a time, I would have not wanted, like I was vegetarian for about 20 years. I remember I always felt like, gosh, it's so uncomfortable. Like I was making the people around me uncomfortable, but it actually wasn't my responsibility to make everybody else comfortable. But anyway, that's the beauty of getting older. There's a lot of things about getting older that I'm really loving, and one of them is to stop apologizing for my own decisions.
Oh, people ask me all the time, like, how do you go when you go to other people's houses? And do people freak out cooking for you because, I love, my food and all this kind of stuff? I'm like, no, I just take a picture of a recipe and send it to someone and say, cook this if you're worried. Like, big deal. Whereas, so many people get, I'm not sure what to cook, and there's all this big drama around it. It's like, just have these open conversations. I want to invite you around for dinner. Have no idea what to cook for you. You either bring it yourself or send me a recipe, instead of drama around I can't eat this and I'm allergic to this and all the carry on that's happening around food at the moment. Actually just doesn't need to be happening.
No.
And separate conversation clearly, but it doesn't need to be happening.
No, that's right. Less complicated would suit us all. And just two quick questions so that I can I've noticed the time very quickly. I know you've got a beautiful gift for our audience. Did you want to take a second just to let them know what that is?
So my big dream and passion is just to get everyone fermenting and looking after their gut bugs, so they can have all that energy and all of the excitement and dopamine and everything that we talked about. So my first book that I wrote is a really awesome starter Bible when it comes to fermenting. So there's a lot of questions, a Q&A at the start of the book, so some troubleshooting around fermenting, and then also some great recipes in there as well, including one that I picked up from Norway, because we're talking about Norway before.
Oh, good.
So the gift is the Functional Fermented Nutrition ebook, which is a wonderful book just to get everyone started and inspired to get fermenting.
Perfect. Love it. And a final question, just quickly. What does a rich and prosperous life look like to Kirsty Wirth?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow. You sprung that one on me. A rich and prosperous life is to absolutely serve community. It's a big part of giving me joy is serving community. Acting completely and wholeheartedly with integrity and authenticity. That's very important. Nurturing my family and, doing all the adventures and the crazy fun stuff with that, and learning every single day, learning and sharing and inspiring people. So, and just eating really yummy food.
And handstands.
And handstand.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us, Kirsty. As always, it's an absolute delight.
Well, thank you for having me.